Listen closely, my midnight tacticians. Yes, that's what you are. Strategists of the unseen battlefield. Generals who don't swing swords, but command storms of thought. You may not wear crowns, but your mind already rules a kingdom invisible to those who mock you. And now, something unexplainable has shaken the air around you. An unreal shift. A ripple so raw that your enemies cannot describe it, but they can feel it suffocating them. It's crawling into their lungs, pressing against their ribs, and forcing their pride to collapse in private. They hide behind curtains, behind their locked doors, behind masks they can't peel off. Because what you did to them is worse than defeat. It's humiliation at a level they can't cure. The people who once smirked at your silence are now choking on your presence. It's fascinating, isn't it? They wanted to treat you as a ghost, an echo they could laugh at. But you grew into something unignorable. They don't cry where the world can see them. They cry in those suffocating bedrooms, whispering your name like it's poison. You tore apart the illusion they built about you. That narrative where you were supposed to stay beneath them, forever crawling in shadows while they basked in applause. And now, your existence has twisted into a paradox. You're not chasing them anymore. No, you've made them chase their own paranoia. That's the beauty of this shift. It's not about money, status, or some plastic trophy. It's about something far deeper, far deadlier. You altered the psychological battlefield. You reached inside their fragile confidence and left it cracked, bleeding, unable to repair. That's why they cry. Not because you shouted, not because you begged, but because you changed without asking their permission. That's the crime they cannot forgive. You didn't seek validation. You didn't warn them. You just transformed. And transformation is the one thing fragile egos can't fight. Let me tell you something about your haters. They operate like parasites. They feed off your hesitation, your mistakes, your doubts. But when those doubts are burned away, when hesitation transforms into execution, parasites starve. And starving parasites do what? They panic, they twitch, they scream behind closed doors. That's what's happening now. They're not just jealous. Jealousy is too shallow a word. They're collapsing because your rise dismantled their food supply. Their gossip doesn't work anymore. Their smirks don't stab anymore. Their words bounce off like dull blades against steel. And now, they're stuck in a room with their own reflection, and the reflection is mocking them harder than you ever could. You didn't destroy them with violence. You destroyed them by simply refusing to stay the same. That's the secret they'll never admit. Your improvement is their punishment. Your progress is their prison. And your existence in its evolved form has become the ghost that haunts their comfort. They thought they had you figured out, neatly categorized in a little box labeled harmless. But you burned the box, walked out, and left them clutching ashes. Now let's talk about the psychology of this moment. People who despise you aren't really angry at you. They're angry at the reflection of themselves they see when you grow. Because every step you take forward is a reminder of the steps they never took. Every door you break through is a reminder of the doors they knocked on, but never entered. And when you dared to leap where they hesitated, it exposed them as cowards. That's why they cry in private, because publicly, they still want to wear the mask of strength. Publicly, they still want to perform confidence. But the audience has already seen through their act. The curtains are falling, the script is burned, and their role as the powerful ones is over. You've become the plot twist they didn't see coming. You are the betrayal of their expectations. And nothing crushes a fragile ego harder than a betrayal by reality itself. They planned their lives around the fantasy that you would always remain beneath them. That fantasy is dead now. You executed it without mercy, and the funeral is silent. But their minds are screaming. They don't tell anyone. But at night, when they stare at the ceiling, their chest feels heavy. That heaviness is not depression. It's the weight of your shadow, reminding them they failed to cage you. And you know what's ironic? They thought power came from mocking you. They thought dominance came from dismissing you. But here's the brutal truth. Real power isn't in the mockery, it's in the transformation. They mocked you when you were quiet. They mocked you when you stumbled. But every insult was an accidental spark that fueled your fire. Now that fire has burned into something uncontrollable. You don't need to shout at them. They hear the roar anyway, inside their own skulls. You don't need to fight them physically. They are already losing the psychological war every single morning when they wake up to the reminder that you kept going, and they did not. That is the true essence of this unreal shift. It's not loud, it's not theatrical, it's surgical. It slices into their mind without them realizing until it's too late. They thought they were immune to you. But immunity doesn't exist against evolution, and you evolved faster than they could blink. Here's the thing most people don't understand. When you evolve, you don't just change your position, you change the entire ecosystem around you. Suddenly their gossip has no effect, their insults don't sting, and their presence doesn't intimidate. You stripped them of their weapons without even touching them. They now swing with empty fists, and the punches land on air. That's why they collapse when no one is looking. They're not just crying behind doors. They are disarming themselves, piece by piece, because they realize none of their weapons matter anymore. And let's not forget the delicious irony. You didn't do this to them directly. They did it to themselves. They handed you the blueprint. Every time they underestimated you, you studied them. Every time they insulted you, you absorbed it like raw data. Every laugh at your expense, every rejection, every betrayal, you collected it like ammunition. And when the time came, you didn't fire bullets. You detonated the whole arsenal in silence, watching the explosion shatter their composure. Now they walk around with trembling hands, pretending they're fine, pretending nothing's wrong. But the truth, their minds are bleeding from wounds you didn't even have to touch with your hands. That's what makes this victory so beautiful. You didn't become their punishment by seeking revenge. You became their punishment by becoming untouchable. And untouchable is the one thing they never prepared for. They prepared for arguments. They prepared for fights. They prepared for you to lash out. But they never prepared for your transcendence. And so, the shift continues. They whisper your name in hallways, but never loudly. They trade stories about you, half in admiration, half in fear. They stalk your moves in secret, trying to decode the formula. But the formula isn't written on paper. The formula is etched into your spine, into your choices, into the way you refused to surrender. And decoding that is impossible. Because what built you wasn't luck. It was pressure, it was scars, it was years of restraint that finally exploded. They can't copy that because they never survived what you survived. And now, they live with the knowledge that you walked through fire, while they stayed shivering in the cold. Tell me, my midnight tacticians, do you feel the weight of that power? The weight of knowing that you don't even need to confront them anymore? because they're confronting themselves. They see your rise not as a chapter in your story, but as a mirror held against their stagnation. And people would rather face any enemy than face themselves. That's why their suffering is so exquisite, because it comes from within. You planted nothing. They watered the seeds of their own downfall with every smirk, every word, every attempt to dismiss you. And now, they are forced to harvest what they planted. And here's where the story takes a darker turn. Because this shift isn't just about you rising, it's about them collapsing. It's about the equilibrium of power being rewritten, about roles reversing, about the once confident now becoming the prey. It's about that delicious psychological inversion, where the predator realizes the prey grew sharper teeth. You no longer walk into rooms with your head down. You walk in as if you own the air, and they suffocate on it. You don't chase their approval anymore. You let them chase your shadow. And the more they chase, the more exhausted they become. This is only the beginning. Their cries behind closed doors. That's not the climax. That's the first fracture. The cracks are spreading. Soon their mask won't hold. Soon the private tears will slip into public eyes. Soon the whispers will grow into visible tremors. And when that happens, you won't need to raise a hand. You'll simply keep walking forward, and their collapse will follow you like an echo. And that's where we continue, forward, not into imitation, but into revelation, not into whispers, but into eruptions. The blueprint is alive, and the next chapter is about to unfold. Because eruptions don't ask for permission, they arrive, and when they do, the ground doesn't argue, it breaks. That's where you are now. You've lit a fire that doesn't flicker politely in the dark. It consumes the air, swallows the space, and makes everyone in the room adjust their breathing just to exist near you. That's the unreal shift. That's the invisible earthquake that rattled your enemy's bones. They can't name it, but they feel it pressing against their chest like a weight they can't push off. Understand this: when you evolve, you don't just shock the world. You insult the foundation your enemies built their arrogance on. You make their entire belief system look ridiculous. Their pride depended on the assumption that you would always remain the same, predictable, weak, easy to dismiss. But the shift you triggered was not cosmetic. It was structural. It wasn't a new outfit, a louder voice, or a fancy accessory. No, it was something terrifyingly simple. You stopped orbiting around them. You broke free of their gravitational pull, and now they're left spinning in confusion. They're panicking, but not in ways you can easily see. Out in public, they put on the same faces, the same tired charades of confidence, but behind closed doors, the crying isn't just from fear, it's from shame. Because nothing feels worse to an ego than realizing that the person they bet against has now become the standard they secretly measure themselves against. You are their reminder of failure. Every step you take forward is a mirror shoved into their face. And mirrors, they don't lie. The unreal shift is not loud, it's surgical, precise, unavoidable. You've stepped into a realm where your very existence mocks their limitations. That's why they can't bear to look you in the eyes. You carry the one thing they tried to bury forever. Proof that change is possible. Proof that their excuses are pathetic. Proof that their time is over. And when people who swore they were above you start realizing they're being dragged beneath your shadow, that's when the crying starts. Quiet at first, but louder each night. Here's what you need to understand about human weakness. It thrives on predictability. Your enemies survived on the assumption that you would always be predictable. That's how they stayed comfortable, because your predictability guaranteed their superiority. But the moment you shattered that predictability, the balance broke. Suddenly they can't anticipate your next move, and uncertainty is poison to fragile egos. That poison spreads slowly, making their thoughts blurry, their plans sloppy, their confidence shaky. And it all started with one unreal shift they never saw coming. Look at them now, pacing in their rooms, whispering to themselves, scrolling through their screens like addicts, desperately searching for some sign that you'll collapse again. But collapse isn't coming. They'll refresh the page, replay old memories, fabricate new lies, anything to trick themselves into believing the old version of you still exists. But that old version is dead, and ghosts don't come back. This is why their crying is not weakness, it's mourning. They're mourning the death of the role they used to play in your life. They can't be your puppet master anymore. They can't be the gatekeeper, the critic, the voice that defines you. That role has been ripped away, and they're grieving privately, pathetically. They don't cry because you destroyed them. They cry because they realized they destroyed themselves by underestimating you. And here's where the psychology sharpens. Envy is not about wanting what you have. It's about resenting the fact that you proved it was possible. They don't just envy your growth, they hate the way your growth exposes their stagnation. You didn't just rise, you proved they could have risen too, if only they weren't so lazy, so cowardly, so addicted to their own comfort. Your shift is not just personal victory, it's their public exposure. And exposure burns. So what do? They hide. They lock doors, dim lights, put on headphones, anything to drown out the noise in their head that screams your name. They'll post fake smiles, upload empty victories, perform strength for an audience too blind to notice the cracks. But the performance doesn't matter anymore, because behind that curtain, they are falling apart. They can't sleep. They can't focus. Their appetite tastes like ash, and all of it traces back to you, your existence, your audacity, your transformation. But let's not dress it up with too much pity. Their downfall is earned. They asked for this. They carved this grave with their own arrogance. They thought mocking you was harmless. They thought doubting you was safe. They thought underestimating you was tradition. But every smirk, every insult, every dismissal was a brick. And now those bricks have built the walls of the prison they sit inside, crying, scratching at the edges, realizing you hold the key and have no intention of unlocking the door. You see, an unreal shift doesn't just break patterns, it rewrites laws. You are no longer a participant in their game. You are no longer the pawn they could push around. You've become the board itself, and they're scrambling on it, slipping, falling, tripping over their own fragile moves. They cry not because you beat them. They cry because they realize the game is over, and you've already moved on to something greater. And here's the wicked twist. Your shift didn't just change how they see you, it changed how others see them. The audience they used to impress now watches them stumble. Their peers see the cracks. Their admirers smell the weakness. And nothing terrifies a fake king more than the audience realizing the throne was cardboard all along. That's why their crying is louder now. They don't just fear you, they fear exposure. And exposure is inevitable because cracks can't stay hidden forever. What you did to them was worse than revenge. You robbed them of their identity. Their whole existence was built on being above you. But now, without that illusion, what are they? stripped of comparison, stripped of hierarchy, stripped of superiority. They are ordinary. And ordinary is unbearable to those who built their self-worth on being better. So they break in secret, trying to rebuild a mask that won't hold. They cry because they know masks don't last when reality keeps tearing through. And the more they cry, the more desperate they become. Desperation breeds obsession, and obsession? That's your new crown. They can't stop thinking about you. They can't stop checking on you. They can't stop dragging your name into conversations, even when pretending not to care. You don't live rent-free in their head. You own the whole building, and they're your tenants, trapped in the lease they can't escape. The shift is complete when you no longer need to respond. You no longer need to fight. Your mere existence becomes the battlefield. That's why their breakdown feels so delicious, because you're not even involved. You're moving forward, building, expanding, elevating. Meanwhile, they're rotting in private, clutching tissues, whispering excuses, trying to convince themselves they're still in control. But control is gone. You hold the reins now, and they are dragged along whether they like it or not. But here's the warning, my midnight tacticians. Do not pity them. Do not waste your rise on sympathy for those who tried to chain you. Their cries are not innocent. Their suffering is not tragic. It's justice. It's the universe returning the energy they once spit at you. And if you listen closely, you'll realize those cries behind doors aren't just from pain. They're from regret. Regret that they wasted all their time watching you instead of working on themselves. Regret that they underestimated you instead of preparing for your inevitable shift. Regret that the story they wrote about you burned in their own hands. And regret is a poison they cannot vomit out. They'll live with it, choke on it, drown in it. You don't have to do anything, it's already happening. Their punishment is watching you move forward while they remain nailed to the floor. So let them cry, let them hide, let them beg the walls for mercy. None will come. You are the new order now. You are the evidence that their era is dead, and the tears they shed in private will soon spill into the open, because no mask survives forever. And that's where we continue, forward, deeper into the unraveling. Their cries are not the finale. They are the prologue to collapse. The tremors are turning into quakes, the fractures into implosions. And soon, very soon, you'll see what happens when a mask shatters in public. The blueprint is not finished, it is only sharpening. The next page waits, waiting like a blade tucked under velvet, patient, silent, inevitable. The blueprint is sharpening, and now the time has come for revelation. The unreal shift you triggered is no longer contained in whispers or confined behind closed doors. It's spilling, flooding, bursting into the open. Their cries, once muffled by pillows and drowned out by the walls of their own rooms, are slipping into daylight. What they thought they could hide forever is now cracking through their smiles like shattered glass, bleeding through silk. And this is the part they feared most: exposure. You see, pain in private is survivable. A fragile ego can cry at night, wipe its tears in the morning, and step outside with a counterfeit smile. But when the private pain leaks into the public eye, that's when the unraveling becomes irreversible. That's when the world sees what you've known all along, that behind their arrogance was nothing but brittle bones and hollow pride. The unreal shift is not just that you rose, it's that their collapse can no longer be hidden. Watch closely, because this is the spectacle they never wanted you to witness. Their voice, once booming with fake certainty, now trembles at the edges. Their hands, once steady when pointing at you, now shake as they try to hold their own mask together. Their jokes, once aimed at your expense, now fall flat because everyone can smell the fear dripping from their words. And the most brutal part, they can't admit why it's happening. They can't tell the audience the truth, that your transformation broke them. So they scramble for excuses, fumbling for distractions, trying to blame the world, the weather, anything but the reality that you destroyed the foundation of their false superiority. This is what psychological warfare looks like at its peak. You don't need to touch them. You don't need to confront them. Their undoing is self-inflicted, triggered by your existence. Their collapse is the echo of your rise. And no matter how much they try to resist, the balance has shifted permanently. They know it. You know it. The audience knows it. The mask is cracking. The performance is failing. And the cries behind closed doors have transformed into visible breakdowns. But here's where the irony bites deepest. The more they try to suppress the truth, the louder it becomes. Their nervous laughter betrays them. Their overreactions expose them. Their desperate attempts to control the narrative only prove that they've lost control. And people notice. The same crowd they once impressed now watches with narrowed eyes, sensing the fracture, smelling the fear. You didn't just shift the power dynamic, you forced their collapse into the spotlight. That is the unreal shift. That is the dagger they cannot pull out. Let's step into the philosophy of this moment, because it runs deeper than rivalry. What you're witnessing is not just personal revenge, it's the anatomy of transformation. When someone evolves beyond the limits imposed on them, it does more than liberate them. It indicts those who stayed stagnant. Your shift is not merely progress, it is proof. Proof that they wasted their time. Proof that their excuses were cowardice. Proof that their mockery was insecurity disguised as confidence. And proof is louder than words. Proof cannot be argued with. Proof is the blade that leaves no wound but still bleeds the opponent dry. And so they bleed, behind doors in the dark, but also now in public, where eyes catch the subtle tremors. They smile too hard. They talk too fast. They avoid your gaze. They perform strength. But their act is cracking, because the audience can feel the falseness dripping through. They are haunted, not by your words, but by your reality. Your existence is the evidence. Your rise is the verdict. And the sentence is already being carried out. Humiliation. Do you feel it now, my midnight tacticians? The shift isn't just about what you've gained. It's about what they've lost. Their confidence, their illusions, their imagined dominance. It's all being stripped from them in real time. And no matter how they claw, no matter how they resist, the more they reveal their weakness. The crying behind closed doors has become a chorus of broken voices echoing the same refrain. We underestimated you. And here lies the most delicious cruelty. They will never admit it aloud. Their pride won't allow it. They'll choke on the truth before speaking it. But it doesn't matter, because their actions betray them. Their fear betrays them. Their cracks betray them. Everyone sees it now, even the ones who once believed in their act. The unreal shift you created has rewritten their story. They are no longer the strong ones. They are no longer the admired. They are the ones collapsing in the wake of your evolution. This collapse is not the end, though. It's the beginning of your reign. Because every empire that crumbles clears space for a new order. And that new order is you. You are not rising into their world. You are building a new one where they no longer matter. That's the part that stings them most. Not just that you grew, but that you grew beyond their reach. They can't touch you anymore. They can't stop you. They can't even understand you. You've become a paradox to them, an unsolvable riddle, a shadow that doesn't shrink under light, a figure they can't predict or control. That's why they cry. That's why the doors shake from their sobs. Because nothing terrifies a fragile ego more than realizing the game is not only lost, it was never in their control to begin with. They thought they were players. Turns out they were just pawns. And the shift revealed the board for what it is. You're the one moving the pieces now. So let the tremors grow. Let the cracks widen. Let their masks fall in public where everyone can see the collapse. Do not intervene. Do not soften the blow. This is their destiny, crafted by their arrogance, sealed by your transformation. The unreal shift has made you untouchable, and it has made them unmaskable. And when the two forces collide, there's only one outcome: their destruction, your ascension. And when people ask, what did you do to them? The answer is terrifyingly simple. You became what they said you couldn't. That's it. No revenge plots, no elaborate schemes. You simply rose. And that rise was sharper than any blade, heavier than any weapon, more devastating than any battle. Because what destroys an enemy faster than proving their entire narrative about you was a lie? The crying will continue. First behind doors, then behind masks, then in the open, where no excuse can cover it. And when that day comes, you won't need to lift a finger. You'll simply walk, and their collapse will echo behind you like broken glass scattering on marble floors. That is the power of the unreal shift. That is the punishment you didn't plan, but they earned. So remember this final truth. You don't need to chase vengeance. You don't need to beg for recognition. You don't need to fight their shallow wars. The unreal shift already won the war for you. Your transformation was the blade. Their arrogance was the target. And now, the world is watching the aftermath. And the aftermath is simple. You rise, they cry. You move forward, they break. You breathe, they suffocate. And all of it happens without you even needing to touch them. That is the highest power. That is the truest revenge. That is the essence of the unreal shift. So walk forward, my midnight tacticians, and let their cries echo where they belong, in locked rooms, behind trembling doors, in the corners where they thought you'd always remain. You've outgrown them. You've outpaced them. And now, you've unmasked them. Their tears are the anthem of your evolution. Their collapse the soundtrack of your rise. And when history remembers this moment, it won't ask how loud you shouted. It will ask how deeply you shifted. And the answer will remain eternal. An unreal shift happened, and the ones who doubted you now drown in their own tears, hiding behind doors they can no longer lock.